You ready, Andrew?
Sure, let's do it.
We've been ready for you. Excited.
Yeah,
uh, Hello, everyone. Masha, are we seeing people coming in?
Yep.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Can you see the presentation? Today is your in Brain Trust top skills to have in 2023 fireside chat with Andrew Heywood. I'm Shirley Yang, your host. Hi, Francis. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Mark. Hi, Tiana. Woo! Thanks for telling me you can see everything. Hello. Let's give everyone 30 seconds. Great to see everyone. Good to see you. How's everyone doing?
great. I'm
Hello
doing
from
great.
Chicago, Brian. I'm in Chicago too. What neighborhood? I'm in a suburb called Hinsdale. I hope you've heard of it. Ukrainian village. Woo, Allison. Mexico City. Fantastic. Great, let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Shirley Yang, a builder of the Brain Trust Network. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today to chat with Andrew Heywood, talent acquisition at Roblox. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Shirley. Really excited to be here this morning on my time.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a global audience, as you can already see in the chat. We love to know what everyone is up to. Everyone's so talented in your own discipline. So I love how you're dropping in your cities. If you can please also drop in your role. So let's say full stack engineer Chicago. That would be awesome. We want to know what type of role you're in. Andrew is hiring. He's in the engineering department. So let's see who's in the room with us today. Brain Trust is the first decentralized talent network, connecting highly skilled tech talent with the world's leading brands and most exciting startups. We're a community of over 400,000 talented professionals that have earned over $180 million through quality jobs on the platform. I remember when I first joined Brain Trust, this is back in 2020, we were saying, hey, we're doing $1 million a month. And that was just so incredible for a startup. Now we're doing $180 million, which is so incredible to see the growth because of everyone here. Masha actually just dropped a link in the chat. Masha, you might want to do that again because it got flooded in the chat. But info.app.usebraintrust.com. So this is actually a live network stats of the Brain Trust Network that shows how much money the network has generated in gross service value, GSV, you might hear this term, and how much B-Trust is dispersed into the community, as well as average market rates for your skill set. So super handy to take a look at how much you're charging compared to the rest of the talent community. So off we go. Agenda. We have a lot to talk to Andrew about today, and we know you are excited to talk to him. He'll be answering questions from the community. I'm actually going to be showing those questions that you posted on Brain Trust directly, and so Andrew can address the community that way. I'll share also a few open roles that we want to spotlight on the Brain Trust platform, and also tell you about the $5,000 B-Trust contest that's happening. As we progress through today's chat and you have more questions for Andrew, please post your questions on the Career Help feed on Brain Trust with the hashtag AMA and hashtag Skills 2023, and we'll continue to answer that way. All right, without further ado, Andrew Heywood, our guest today, has been recruiting for more than 2 decades, including at Google, Apple, startups, and now at Roblox. Andrew, please give us a brief introduction of yourself.
Great. Yeah, excited to be here again, Shirley. Been recruiting for a little bit here. I started recruiting actually in Japan, a different country, and that's kind of got my feet wet in this craft. Spent some time out there, came back, was lucky enough to join Google to help spearhead certain initiatives like hiring for their Tokyo presence. Yeah, I've been doing this again for a bit with some brands like Google, Apple, Adobe, Roblox, now Twitter, startups. Have worked with different phases in companies, helping to bring on top talent. So It's been quite a journey. It's been really exciting, and it's the same, but also it's evolved quite a bit.
I bet, with your experience, and we're going to dive in. I'm really excited to see both enterprise and startup experience that you have to answer these questions from a holistic recruiting perspective. And so the Braintrust community asked and posted hundreds of questions for you. If you go to our career feed, there is just ongoing. The team went through actually every single one of them and organized them by themes so we can have a more consistent discussion. So everyone knows here, we're talking about top skills, so mainly focusing on the soft skills and how to get a job here. The themes that we're going to be going over today are first, getting the interview. So this is a hot topic. The resume selection process, how to stand out, etc. And then the second one is landing the job. So after the interview, how do you get over to that final step to getting hired? Number 3 topic, navigating transitions, the tech landscape today, career changes later in life. And finally, AI. I mean, generative AI have been a topic that's been brought up. And so I had to address it here. How can job seekers use it to our advantage? So diving in first, I'm going to switch it over to show the Braintrust product. Can everyone see the first question by Eric Anderson? Can you see that now? Yeah, so, you know, the top question here, right, is how do you get your resume selected for an interview? I wanted to read through some, like I selected 3 posted by the community. By reading these, we can all resonate where people are coming from, okay? So Eric Arison says, with recruiters facing hundreds and hundreds of applications for any role posted, what's a candidate's best chance at standing out and making it to that first round? And hold on, there's another flavor to that same question. How do I get noticed when applying online? By Dave Passmore. My biggest challenge in my job search is getting past the online application process and getting an interview. How do I get noticed in a sea of hundreds of applications? I've been focusing more on networking, but do you have any other advice on how to get an interview? And lastly, I want to share one more post. Why does job hunting feel like a numbers game? You know, last time we spoke with a recruiter, it felt like swiping the dating apps almost. How can people join companies they actually want to work for and not just one that pays the bills? So, Andrew, really, these are different flavors of the same question. The question here is, how do we stand out in the application process? And what do you really look for to be chosen and selected for an interview?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And especially now, given the tech landscape and what is going on. First, the first part of it is the first question: how do you get that first interview on the phone so you can explain what you do, who you are, why you want to be at that company, for example? And it can be quite daunting. So I can emphasize with folks that who are going through this process of finding their next role, essentially finding their next journey and next company, essentially. So yes, I think first and foremost, the application process for a lot of companies can be daunting. You're probably seeing online right now jobs that are posted, but there's hundreds of applicants for one role or thousands of applicants potentially. So in my experience, first, really try to figure out, lay out a plan of which companies that you want to potentially work for, which you might have already done if you applied for the role, did research. But how do you dig in? Do you know anyone at that company, for example? Are you connected with anyone in that company that you could reach out to, talk to about the company, kind of figure out what are they looking for? What kind of folks have been part of that organization, or what kind of folks have, for example, work there right now? You can do maybe an online search or a LinkedIn search or mutual connection search. Essentially try to connect with someone there to talk to them. And I think one of the questions mentioned tapping into their network, for example, or networking. That's part of it. How do you get that first conversation? So in my experience in a lot of different companies, including Roblox, right? If you have a trusted individual that you may know out there that you want to bring to the table to go to the interview process, they are definitely going to be seen, at least interviewed, right? And each company is going to look for what is that right fit for that company and for that role and for that team. So I would say look into who you might know with that in that organization. Um, Look at folks who have worked there, reach out to them, ask for a quick coffee chat about that company, that organization. You will be surprised. A lot of times folks are open to have coffee chats just to connect and network. Go to events, go to networking events, try to meet more folks. But in terms of trying to get that first call, try to find someone you might know or know of someone who has been there or there to kind of get you that type of even casual conversation. So I think that's really important. Um, Dig into anything that the company might be related to as well. Research the company. But if you can find a way to really connect with a human being from that organization or reach out to them to get a further conversation, that's going to lead you into that direction of the initial conversation that you're going to have. It is work, I have to say, right? Doing this process of not just sending your application out there and waiting for an answer, right? That process of hunting for hunting that job for yourself, it is work. But that's one of the big things that I've seen that will help quite a bit if you don't have a referral that can refer you in, for instance.
Okay, thank you. So mapping out your plan of your strategy for getting the job. And one of the key things to do is actually finding a human being in that company and networking through that channel.
Right. That's definitely one of the big areas that's going. That I have individuals that I know that right now that have been affected by this tech market, and I talk to them, and they have applied to hundreds of jobs, right? And the ones that they're getting interviews are folks that they might have known or they reached out, got a conversation, or referred into.
Referrals, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's say we do parallel strategy. So we look for people, but at the same time, as a talent, we sent in a resume. Okay, so that's in. So as a recruiter, before you hear this is a referral, are there first like one or two things that you look for on someone's LinkedIn profile or resume that really jumps off to you
Yeah.
to select it?
That's a great question. And I think for folks who might not have hired before or even have been a hiring manager, each organization has a certain skill and certain things they're looking for in regards to that position and role. So is it relevant experience? Is it a certain type of scale, for example, an engineer they've worked on, or is it some kind of uh, product that they help develop within the organization? Bottom line, they're looking for something. And so make sure you have the relevant experience and tailored resume or profile that's going to be relevant to that position, for example. There are a lot of other nuances that happens as well when looking for that right fit internally. So recruiters, for example, there is that bucket where you go through the individuals that have applied. You look at what's relevant. Is that a match? Internally, as companies hire, there is a process of also figuring out what would be a match for them sometimes, especially if it's a new role, for what they need for that team and the growth that's ahead for them. But I would essentially fundamentals, make sure things are relevant on your profile, your resume. Make sure that you can properly explain in highlights of what you've done and the impact at what you've done. For high growth scale companies, they're looking for individuals obviously very passionate about their craft and what they've done, the impacts they made within organizations. Why do they like this craft, right? Usually you'll find very passionate people. There's a reason why they're doing it, and they love what they do as well, right? In terms of maybe building a product or working on the infrastructure side of a product, for example. But there's a reason why, but make sure that is tailored. And there is a process of screening the applicants, as you mentioned here, Shirley, of going through that, and the recruiters and hiring managers are seeing what is relevant for them internally.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Michelle, for the kind words in chat. She's appreciating you, Andrew. And so, through that application process, we typically hear more no's than yeses, normally. And I think Zachary Jones has a really good question here. What are the most important things to personally track in your job strategy and search? To me, I'm taking this as, how do you learn from the rejections? Or, maybe you don't hear back, and that in and of itself, there's uncertainty and you're sitting with that. Let's say there's like 5 or 6 unknowns that's happening. So what are some signals that you want to jot down for yourself so to improve this job search for next time?
Yeah, definitely acknowledge this. I'll quickly tell a story. When I was in Japan for a bit, I came back to the United States, and I actually had more experience of professional work experience in Japan than I did in my home country. So I experienced the process of trying to get my feet settled and, get myself established here back in California, USA, where I'm from. And I went through a long process of rejections, applying, trying to go through my network. And a long story short, first and foremost, it's a journey. So I hope folks out there, don't get too discouraged. It is a journey. It's a process. Map it out like a process, maybe like in a job. Think of it like maybe you have a workout routine, or you maybe in your old role, you have a process of doing things. So map out, again, initially from what kind of companies, industries you want to target, have maybe a tracking or a document or something, a way of tracking what you've done, how you've done it. Important things to personally track. Yeah. Outside of like applying for certain company, you can track, you applied, you get a response. But I would really map things out. Again, industry, type of companies. Did you interact with anyone from the company? Did you reach out to anyone? Did you go to any network events? Really track this whole process and this search. What was the result? Why did you hear back? I think to your point, Shirley, a lot of times we might not hear back from a company. Hopefully you do. I think organizations, if you at least spoke with them on the phone or did it on site, you should be seeing some kind of response. So for example, in kind of our methods, I like to at least give someone a phone call and let them know the result, right? Make sure there's that human touch to it. And you will hopefully find that in most processes. You might not sometimes. You might put your resume out there, it gets left in the void. And don't be discouraged by that. Keep moving on and keep tracking your progress in this. And it is a journey for everyone who goes through a job search.
Thank you. One thing that I would add is probably the interview questions. So if you do get into the behavioral or culture fit questions, what are some things that you feel very confident in answering? Are there new questions that get stumped on? Or are there questions that maybe you think you could have answered better, right? So making it as a learning experience. The next question that we have is, while this is loading, from Linka, since a lot of executive roles never get posted publicly, what are the best paths for executive level job seeker to find opportunities without current employer knowing?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think, as you noted, Shirley, a lot of executives, these roles they're more limited in the market. They're more obviously high level. I think a lot of times as well, they're going to be approached by either executive search firm, or maybe a company has executive hiring team with internally, and they're going to be approached or networked. A lot of times is, are you networking with executive leadership groups, for instance? Do you have some kind of leadership forum that you're part of? Are you connecting with leaders of like-mindedness or industry, for example, thought leaders? Are you attending certain events? Most of the time, these leaders, they're not going to be necessarily posted the positions, but they're going to be approached. Like we have an internal executive search team, for instance, and they're going to approach individuals or start networking with individuals. If there's a plan in the future, potentially of hiring more leaders to the organization. So it is definitely more strategic. It's a longer process. And I think for any kind of leader, it is that process of networking more, working with certain thought leaders, right? So that's where you're going to see, or a lot of times you could work with an executive search firm, and those search firms they work as a very confidential nature overall, and they're going to be having a certain strategy in terms of how they might present certain opportunities for that executive, for instance.
Okay, thank you very much. And before we move on to the next category of after the interview, how to actually push through and get hired, I want to just drill in and back to the original point, because I do see in chat people are still asking, how do we get selected through the resume? And Andrew talked about this, and let me try to very concisely highlight the major points. And Andrew, please go deeper if you feel needed. But scanning a resume, the most important thing a recruiter wants to see is skill set match, experience match. Okay, I saw Sid
Right.
and was it Daniel, you guys, or Matt, you guys were asking. Skill set match, experience match. On top of that, okay, is how passionate you are and how much you care about what you're building. So not even if you're a product manager, maybe you also work on the infrastructure side of things. Maybe you have a personal blog about what you're building. All of that contributes to, I guess it tells a story of who you are more holistically. That's what I got. And so, Andrew, I guess on top of that is, what if there are a lot of people that also, are similar? They all have skill set match. Then what is it that you're looking for?
Yeah.
Is it awards? Is it like, what's the cherry on top?
Yeah, that's a great question. It definitely varies from team to team, company to company, role to role. I think kind of rolling back, each organization has certain things they look for what is the right fit for them, what will impact the team now, and also what's going to impact how are they going to bring an individual who's going to grow with them as well in the future, not just the role itself right now. Um,
Mhm.
cherry on top, it really depends again on the organization, but they might looking for someone individual who maybe accomplished XYZ at this certain organization, for example, and they went above and beyond, for instance. Or for example, they took risk in their career, and because of that risk, they became better at their craft, for instance. If I look at startups I worked with, it was an environment where you really had to be proactive, sometimes be scrappy, and you had that kind of mindset of grit, just a lot of grit and pushing through. And you try to see that story in the written form initially. And that's why putting that relevant skill sets as well as other things you've done is going to be really important, because first, the employer or that recruiter, they don't know you yet. They haven't spoken to you. They don't know what you've done. All they can base things is off maybe that written format, a resume or a LinkedIn profile, or maybe you do have a blog or something as well. They can base their initial feelings about what you've done that could be relevant for their experience. So I guess, really it will depend, but making sure you do that upfront research. It is a lot of work. to your point, Shirley, earlier, preparing for questions, maybe tracking questions that were new to you, prepare, maybe you felt you weren't prepared and you are trying to get ready for a potential another time that gets asked, but prepare before you send that application, have that relevant skill set, also show what you've done in terms of making that impact for the organization.
Thank you. Making
Yeah.
impact for the organization. And, I think reading in between the lines also, that's something that is a layer deeper, is why is this company hiring for this role right now? And what are the things that are unsaid in the job description? Are they looking for a people person? Are they looking for someone who can come in and just be behind the scenes? Like, is that something that you can write on your cover letter or show in your resume, the things that they left off, in the job description? And Andrew, I really appreciate you. I know this is hard and I'm pushing here, but this is what people want to know. So
Yeah.
thank you for sticking with me.
That's great.
And drilling in further. Okay. So let's move on to landing the job. So how do you weigh cultural fit? Ellen has this question, versus technical skills when recruiting. What soft skills do you consider to be most underrated yet critical to success to a tech organization?
Yeah, this is a really nice question. So, number one, do you have coding skills, right? For example, or can you architect some big design or whatnot? So I think, again, a lot of companies have different variations of what this means. And so this can be first embedded in the interview process. So during that, say, coding interview or system design interview, for example, or a project deep dive or something like this, interviewers are looking into, how do you interact with that question? How did you prepare potentially? How do you communicate with that individual? How did you answer it, right? Did you ask questions with follow-up questions? So all of that also ties into the interviewer, feeling if this is going to be a fit based on your technical and how are you interacting with them? Because remember, interview is a two-way street. You're also interviewing them, they're interviewing you, and they're trying to figure out, are you going to be the right fit to work with to help scale something or maybe work on a product, for instance? And are you going to be that individual that's going to grow with the company? So startups, other companies might look for folks who can deal with fast-paced environment, or maybe the organization is larger, maybe there's more process. Has someone experienced developing process, streamlining process, or maybe it's a startup. They need people, they're not ready for a big drawn out process. They need folks who can get things done and make things happen because they don't have enough time. They're limited on maybe a certain amount of funding. They got to get a product out. So these are things they're looking for. I can say that, if it's good to ask follow-up questions, clarifying questions during the interview. Don't just assume, because you might be assuming wrong and you might answer what you thought versus what they're trying to think. So make sure you're clear, for example, on the answer, or question that they're asking, for instance. I think that's really important. To have good listening skills. I know I am now, listen in on the question, listen to the interviewer, go two ways. Try not to talk over the interviewer as well.
Very good. And so what if you completely blow like your answer and you answer something, it was just over your head in the moment? Is it okay to go back to fix it in the thank you note? And I'm going to add to that. Would it make you the recruiter? Would it have been better if they answer it right the first time, or it's okay now that they fixed it in a thank you note?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if sometimes you might get a question asked that maybe it's above, or maybe you can't answer, and it's okay to say, look, be honest a little bit and be transparent. Because I think it's better to be transparent versus to extend yourself. And the interviewer will know, right? You're trying to extend yourself and you're not necessarily answering it in that correct direction, or they'll know you might not know what you're talking about as well. So I think it is okay to be transparent, and kind of clarify and potentially say, I'm sure I can answer that, for instance, or I have this experience. Also, and yeah, in the thank you note, it's always nice to have a follow-up. I thought of more about that question, and I realized I missed on this point. That is always a good thing to do. But again, during that time during interview, clarify and be transparent. It's okay. They want to see who you are.
Very good. So it's almost like, hey, let's try to answer this together. I want to give you the best answer that I can right now. So I'm going to ask you clarifying questions,
Yeah.
answer to my best of my ability, and then I'll think about it some more. And if I do have more for you, then I will add it to my thank you note. So it's
Yeah.
almost like being human about it, right? Versus like being pretending I know it and give you a made up answer.
Yeah, 100%. I think, companies and interviewers, they want to see the human side of you.
Okay, great. So I think you sort of you addressed this, but anything else to add about Liam? Lindsay is asking about addressing extracurricular activities, hobbies, weighing into decision making. How can applicants find ways to talk about those and leverage them in a way positively?
Yeah, I think overall, when you have at some point, like if you're someone who has a lot of industry experience, make it relevant to your craft and industry. And then, it's nice to have hobbies. Everyone has a hobby, right? And and companies will have groups, hobby specific groups, which is great, where you really get to bond as a company and team, for example. But I would suggest to keep it more relevant to the craft at hand.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. And then another question, next one that we have is about the four-stage interview question from Sarita. I think four-stage interview, there's a lot of different flavors to that, but
Yeah.
essentially it's a pre-screen screening phone call and in person or
Right.
whatever. So she has a question, as a designer, or in your case, engineers, how do you she seems to be making it to the fourth round but not get hired. So Andrew, what happens behind the
Yeah.
scenes? Like after the in-person, you seem like everything's great and you did a great job, but you just didn't get hired. So what happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. So companies, as folks have experienced, have a certain internal process depending on the role and what that's going to look like. They may have multiple positions open for the role, or they may not. Maybe one position, for instance. So, if you think of it in that respect, on the other side, they may have one role open. Maybe they have 20 applicants, but maybe you're one of the 20. Maybe they got 5 down to the on-site stage, right? And then they have to pinpoint what is going to be that best fit for them, right? And so, to answer your question, yeah, it's tough. I have also been through different processes where I've made it to, meeting leaders or, the exec stage or whatnot, and it didn't work out for whatever reason, and that's okay. But I think what one you could do is try to ask any feedback, right? A lot of times companies may not be able or open to give too much detailed feedback, but try to ask feedback of maybe what they're lacking, for instance. Um, maybe ask during the interview as well. Anything else you may want to ask me, anything that you may not see in my profile, try to ask during the interviews. But I would say it's learning experiences. Try to get as much information as you can from that and build from it, for instance.
Mhm.
Um, Again, there's a lot of internal processes in these companies, and they may have one spot open with X amount of people, right? And if you even make it to an on-site to exec, that is a long process. Obviously, it's not the end result that you want. And especially if you've been working really hard, I would say take everything as a learning experience, as a journey, and um, make each interview as another training round, right? But you want to be prepared, right? But each time you're interviewing more and more, it's a skill set. And when you're starting that interview process, your first few interview processes you might be super rusty. You might be in the market again after X amount of years, and you're gonna have to warm up again and get in that interview mode, which takes some time too.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you. So there's a lot that happens behind the scene. We can't always know what happens. Just know if you go through the fourth, you're like the top. And there's so many different factors what could happen. I think talking about navigating transitions is another category. We had a couple questions posted
Yeah.
to the flavor of, hey, I have 2 decades, 3 decades of experience. What advice do you have for older job seekers with candidates with decades of experience? Now, one person last time said older is like 40 plus. Now, 40 is not old, okay? 40 is
Right,
a new
right.
30. So
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a great question. I think we all will deal with this, the longer we work, right? And the landscape is changing as well, in tech and in other industries. Different industries have different challenges in this area, right? So, I would say one, it depends on, are you trying to transition to a different career? That's different from if you have still trying to stay in your same industry, for instance. I think first and foremost, if you have a lot of industry experience and you're trying to, obviously something might have happened, or maybe there was a layoff or whatnot, you're trying to get another opportunity. I think first and foremost, anyone in their craft has to always stay up to par in terms of what's the latest and greatest. They have to keep developing their skills. People who are on top of that will always usually get conversations and discussions, even if they have a lot of experience. If you get too stagnant in your current company and you're not pushing your skills or trying to learn and continue to learn and grow, that's going to be more challenging. I think having that growth mindset continually is going to open up more opportunities for you. Not to say that it can be challenging, that this is real, especially if you have a lot of years of experience. You might experience this, but the right organization is going to want to hire you for yourself and what you've done. And again, keep pushing through that journey of trying to find that fit for yourself.
100%. And so we're running really quickly to the
Okay.
end of our chat. That was so fast. So I think we had a couple of AI questions. I think
Yeah.
we'll omit this one. There's actually a nice answer to this one using AI to apply to jobs. Someone from the community, Marcos, answered, Michael, how to use Chat GPT to see how great a fit you are. Instead, I want to switch over to Andrew, the roles that you are hiring for. So those on the call who are on the market, I'm gonna just like full screen this.
So yeah, great. I quickly about AI. It's going to be interesting landscape. We're seeing it definitely in a lot of different areas, from, to your point, job seeker, Chat GPT, to recruiting tools, and we're going to see more of this in the years to come. So
Yeah.
it's not going away. It's coming, but it's really, how can we use it for our own benefit? That's
Yeah.
what the key thing here is. And yeah, we are hiring at Roblox. So I just put 2 roles here, for instance, on the site reliability side. If you are a SRE that likes to work with scale, come talk to me. We have different SRE type of roles open in our infra team. We also have a lot of other type of roles open, but come talk to me. We have some backend SWE roles, full stack roles. So we are growing.
Fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you. And these are full-time roles, hybrid in San
Yeah.
Mateo, California.
Yes.
And do you have any fully remote ones or not right now?
No, we don't. We really
Okay.
are back in the hybrid mode. So
Okay.
if individuals do want to relocate, that's great. But
Mhm.
we're fully hybrid now.
Okay, Andrew, what's the best way to reach out to you? Is it connecting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, please feel free to connect on
Okay.
LinkedIn, and happy to connect with you.
Yeah, and so for these 2 specific roles, anyone's interested, Masha's dropping them in the chat. You can click directly and apply on Brain
Yeah.
Trust. A few other roles I want to spotlight here that's currently open on Brain Trust: full stack engineer at Telemer. It's also a hybrid, and this one is in London. Backend engineer at One Shot Earth. hybrid in Amsterdam, and product designer at Community Jamil, part-time remote job, work from anywhere. Again, please remember, if yourself is not a good fit, you can still earn money. It's kind of like with your referrals, right? It's passive income. Anyone that you refer that gets hired, you get 1% of their billings. So make sure you use a referral link from your BrainTrust profile. Andrew, please, I want to tell you about a $5,000 BrainTrust contest. I don't know if you heard about this one, but everyone's very excited here. Now through September 30th, whoever refers the most verified clients with their referral link. So Andrew, if you have recruiter friends at other companies, hey, please refer them onto BrainTrust. You actually get 2% of all their billings. So your recruiter friend at another company who hires people, you get 2% of their billings. Up to 100K in BTrust for every client you refer. We have someone who's making a killing because they referred some big customers onto the platform. So don't miss out on that. You'll earn an additional $5,000 BTrust for the person who refers the most clients up to September 30. And then Masha's also dropping the link into chat so you can see how to refer. And to close out, I want to tell everyone about the product team has an exciting announcement. We're proud to announce our latest collaboration with Stripe. Everyone's heard of Stripe, to elevate the BrainTrust experience. Based on the community feedback, we incorporate a crypto payment option. And so this gives you greater flexibility in choosing between traditional and crypto payments, ensures instant transactions without the usual banking delays. Sometimes people get paid a couple days later with the bank transfer, whereas crypto is instant. And this is helpful, particularly for global talents with less reliable financial infrastructure. We're always innovating with our talents. The community comes up with great ideas. And please make sure to check out the recent blog posts to see how it works. But thank you so much, everyone. I learned a lot, even though I've been, interviewing a lot of recruiters and been working with talent for a long time. But Andrew, you've been a gem, such a great resource. And thank you so much for being so generous with your time with us today.
Oh, this has been really great. Thank you, Shirley and team. Thanks to everyone for listening. Again, it's a journey. If you're looking for a job, don't give up. It's a process, and happy to connect with anyone.
Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, BrainTrust. Have a wonderful week. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.